Hello, friends. So today we're talking about Descartes' fourth meditation, his sixth meditation, and that essay from Chisholm on freedom. So what I'm going to do in this clip is going to talk about the fourth meditation, and then the next one I'll talk about the sixth meditation, and then on to Chisholm. So, meditation 4. What have we got so far? Well, remember in our first meditation, Descartes endorses the evil demon hypothesis, right, and the dream hypothesis, right, that I can't trust anything from my senses because it's possible I could be massively deceived. Second meditation is that I know I exist as a thinking thing. Third meditation, I know God exists. So at meditation 4, we know that we ourselves exist, and we know that God exists. So we get to this question: what's the difference between things that I know and things that I merely believe, right? So for example, I know that there's, right, so set aside Descartes for a minute, right? So I know there's water in my cup. Now, I've also looked at the weather report, and the weather report says that for today it's going to be, sunny and 85, right? So do I know the weather later today like I know that there's water in my cup? Well, I'm inclined to say no, right? But no, somebody knows. Anyway, that I don't really know what the weather's going to be like later today, right? I have some reason to think that it's going to be sunny and in the 80s because the weather report said it's going to be that way. But, weather reports are wrong. But it's tough to think that I could be wrong about the water in the cup in the way that I'm wrong about the weather. Right? So I know that there's water in the cup, but I don't really know what the weather's going to be like later today. Or suppose I say that I know the Mariners are going to win their next game. Right? Now, again, it's tough for me to say that. It's tough for me to really substantiate that claim that I know they're going to win. I might really hope that they're going to win. I might have a very firm belief that they're going to win. But I don't know that the Mariners are going to win, right? I don't know that they're going to win in the same way that I know water is in the cup, or that I know today is Friday, or that I know that 2 times 2 is 4. So what's the difference between knowing something and having a belief about something? So we saw this before with meditation 1, very briefly. For Descartes, I know something when I can't be wrong about it, right? Or rather, not just, more precisely, I know something when the thing that I know can't be reasonably doubted. So, how do we get to this? Well, one way in which philosophers think about things like knowledge is they consider not just cases when we're right, but also cases when we're wrong. So let's think about cases when we're wrong. Right? Well, so suppose I've got this cup, right? I've got my cup and I've got this clear liquid in it. And suppose, based merely on the look of it, I judge that there's water in the cup. Well, based solely on appearance, I could be wrong, right? It could be gin, it could be vodka, or it could be some other kind of clear liquid. So, if I just look at the water, and if I just look at the clear liquid in the cup, and I judge that it's water, well then, I could be wrong, right? So what's going on here? Well, whenever we form a belief, there are 2 parts, right? So, there are 2 mental parts working. One part is the intellect, right? So the intellect is what forms the idea itself, right? So when I look in here and I say that, I have this idea that pops to mind, right? It says, this is water, right? That's like the intellect working, right? It's taking in a bunch of data and it's performing an inference about the state of the world, right? Namely, the stuff in my cup. The second part is the will. So the intellect forms, in a sense, the content of the belief, right? What the belief is about. And the will is like my commitment to that belief, right? It's me saying, I endorse this belief. So to see how the will and the intellect are different, think about things that you perceive, but you don't believe it, even though you perceive it, right? So think about a visual illusion, for example. Like when you have the Muller-Lyer illusion with the lines and the arrows, right? Like, you see the lines as being of the same length, but you don't, as being of different lengths, excuse me. You see the lines being of different lengths, but you don't believe that the lines are of different lengths, right? You don't endorse that belief. Or when you're driving down the road and it's a really hot day and you look off into the distance and it looks like there's like a pool of water, right? Sort of the ground is kind of shimmering because it's so hot, right? You see the shimmering and you see what looks like water on the ground, but you don't believe it, right? So when you see it, that's the work of the intellect, right? You're taking in the sensory data and you form a belief that the thing that you are perceiving is water. But the will doesn't commit you to that belief, right? It's like you're saying, I see it and I recognize it, but I don't fully endorse it. So, in any belief that we form, we have these two parts of the mind at work. You have the intellect, which forms what the belief is about, and you have the will, which is like your own commitment to the truth of that belief. So, according to Descartes, where we go wrong is when the will outruns the intellect. That is, when we commit ourselves to believing or disbelieving something, but without enough information about it. So when the intellect has what Descartes calls a clear and distinct idea of something, only then should we believe or disbelieve what that idea is about. If we lack a clear and distinct idea, then the responsible thing for us to do as knowers is to withhold judgment. So what's an example of a clear and distinct idea? Well, triangles, right? So think about what's involved with being a triangle, right? We know that all triangles have three angles. We know they all have three sides. We know that the sum of the interior angles is 180 degrees. We know that there are certain classes of triangles called right triangles, and we know the Pythagorean theorem about those. We know about equilateral triangles. We know about isosceles and scalene triangles, right? We know lots of stuff about triangles. So when we list all of the things that make a triangle, then we have a clear idea of a triangle. What makes the idea of a triangle distinct is that I don't confuse a triangle with any other shapes, right? It's not like I look at a triangle and then I look at a square and I'm like, oh crap, which one's the triangle, right? It's rather that it's perfectly the triangle that the triangle is distinct from the square is obvious for me, right? That is to say that my idea of a triangle is an idea of something that is distinct. So, what's an example of an idea that is neither clear nor distinct? Well, consider a perception of a dog, right? Or consider what it takes to be a dog. You might say, well, dogs have four legs, they have fur, they have tails, they have sharp teeth. But then ask yourself, well, what about a three-legged dog, right? If we define a dog as having four legs, then a three-legged dog isn't really a dog, right? Or imagine we require that dogs have fur. Well, what if I take a dog and I shave it? Then our dog is no longer a dog because it lacks fur, right? Or it has sharp teeth, right? Imagine our dog, which is apparently turning out to be a sad, bald, three-legged dog. Imagine our dog has eaten too much candy and so its teeth have fallen out, right? So in that case, the dog has no teeth, therefore it doesn't count as a dog. Right? Clearly that's wrong, right? Three-legged dogs are dogs. Right? So we can't define a dog as having having four legs. So an idea of a dog isn't clear or distinct because it's not crisp and clear what the criteria are for being a dog, right? Like we can have rules of thumb and heuristics and common features, but we can't define what a dog is in the same way that we can define what a triangle is. So ideas of triangles are clear and distinct, Ideas of dogs aren't. So we avoid error whenever we judge our clear and distinct ideas only. And as long as we don't come to any conclusions about ideas that are neither clear nor distinct, then we avoid error entirely. So Descartes gives us the secret to never being wrong. He says, judge only that which you grasp clearly and distinctly. If you don't grasp it clearly and distinctly, then don't form any judgments about it, right? Neither believe nor disbelieve it. So, we have a further question. How do we know that the things we grasp clearly and distinctly are right? So, again, go back to my mug here, right? So I look in here and I think that there's water, right? And I taste it. And it sure as hell tastes like water. But perhaps the evil demon is deceiving me. Maybe this is gin, and the evil demon is deceiving me into thinking that it's water. How do I know that my understandings, my beliefs about triangles, aren't likewise misplaced? And Descartes does this sort of interesting move. What he says is that God acts as a guarantor of my clear and distinct knowledge. That God wouldn't trick me into thinking I grasped an idea clearly and distinctly if I hadn't in fact done that. So we see then the role that God plays for Descartes. I have a clear and distinct idea, and I know that my clear and distinct idea is true because God guarantees it to be true, right? God's not going to trick me into thinking I understand something when I really don't. So one final point here. Descartes asked the question, well, if God is involved in the formation of our true beliefs, right, of our true justified beliefs in what we know, then is God responsible for when I fail to know something, right, or whether when I judge wrongly? And his answer, as you might guess, is no, right? God is not responsible when I judge things wrongly. But the question is why? So, for Descartes, God isn't responsible for my mistakes in judgment because God has given me a will, right? God's given me free will. And my free will is as godlike as I can get. I couldn't be more free than I am right now. And God has given me all of the tools to reason rightly. It's just that when I make these hasty conclusions, or I jump to conclusions, then I'm using my abilities to reason wrongly. So God isn't to blame on Descartes' view when I get things wrong. Only I'm to blame, right? Only the knowing agent, only the knowing person is to blame. Because it's that person who is using their God-given gifts wrongly. So, error doesn't extend all the way up to God. It stops with us, because God gives us what we need in order to know things about the world. It's just that we use them wrongly. So, to sum up Meditation 4, what we find Descartes telling us how to avoid error. Right? He says, judge only that which you grasp clearly and distinctly. He also gives us sort of a more robust description, right? A sort of a fuller description of what it is to know something. You know something when you grasp it clearly and distinctly. He also gives us a little insight into his view about free will, which is that we are as free as we could possibly be. We could not be more free than we are right now. In fact, my free will is as godlike as I can get. So what we find then is we find in Meditation 4, to put all these pieces together, an account of what it means to know something. And this is going to be important because in the next meditation, we get Descartes' argument for the distinctness of mind and body, and also of reason's to think that there is an external world, which we'll get to now.